Before screen is Nelson Havi. Nelson Havi is the former president of Kenya Law Society. He's guiding on the way forward. What next about the 2 Kenyan activists that were abducted in Uganda on the 1st October? Remember, police denied having them. Recently, UPDF also denied having them. Eventually, the High Court dismissed the habeas corpus application that was supposed to compel the Uganda government to produce these 2 in court, dead or alive. So everyone is in the dark. Everyone is like, where is Bob? Where is Nicholas? So Nelson Havi is guiding. I'm going to give him to you. He's going to speak to you. And then the East African Law Society has also joined the race, hunting these 2. It has come out with the demands. We are going to go through their statement as well. Ne update sendala ezenja olukonsonge, because these 2, remember, had come to Uganda to stand in solidarity with Bobiwine, and then they were abducted, and up to today, no one knows their whereabouts. So the biggest question is, where are they? So let's hear from Nelson Havi.
There is urgent need for the people of Kenya to take drastic action to compel both the government of Uganda and the government of Kenya to produce Nicholas Oyo and Bob Njagi, who were kidnapped and are being detained by the government of Uganda. Why do we say so? We say so because the judicial system in Uganda cannot guarantee the production of these 2. And we should not be surprised. Uganda has a history where the Chief Justice Kiwanuka was kidnapped, murdered because he had issued an order of habeas corpus. It will be foolhardy to have expected of a judge in Uganda to issue an order for the production of these 2. But that is not the end of the matter. The history to this matter is well known. Remember, not so long ago, these 2 were kidnapped and detained by the government of Kenya for a period of 31 days. It took deliberate intervention for us to secure the attendance in court of the then acting Inspector General of Police, Gilbert Masengeli, to secure their production. But instead of being produced, they were just dumped somewhere in the morning. What should we do? We are not handicapped, because the government of the Republic of Kenya cannot be sending its deputy president and the cabinet secretary of interior to Uganda to go and campaign for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, but claim that it is handicapped in securing the release of Kenyans being held in Uganda. The way forward, therefore, having established that the Ugandan judicial system is of no help, is first to pursue remedy through the court system in Kenya. I'm liaising with the family of Nicholas Oyo and Bob Njagi with a view to originating a petition in the High Court of Kenya to secure the release of these 2 with immediate effect. That notwithstanding, it is incumbent that we as Kenyans do that which we do best. We must take our sovereign right, we must take the power that is given to us through the Constitution to protest and demand action by the government of the Republic of Uganda and action by the government of the Republic of Kenya. And this shall be done in 2 ways. There is need for the Kenyans to come together to protest, go and barricade the Ugandan embassy in Kenya and demand immediate action. Simultaneous also, there is need for Kenyans to protest and go and barricade the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kenya. Let the cabinet secretary in charge of foreign affairs tell us what steps, what actions have been taken to secure the production of these 2 Kenyans. Let the Ugandan ambassador in Kenya tell us what the government of Uganda has done now that it claims not to be aware of the whereabouts of these individuals to secure the whereabouts. These Kenyans must be done. We cannot allow the trinity of dictatorship that has in the recent past been created by the governments of Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya to continue subverting the rights of the people of the East African community. Thank you.
Of course, that is the Nelson Havi, the former president of Kenya Law Society. Remember, it is Kenya Law Society, Amnesty International Kenya, Vocal Africa. Those three have been at the forefront demanding for the release of Bobiwine, the chairman of the Free Kenyan movement, as well as its Secretary General and Nicholas Oyo. Remember, they were abducted on the 1st October, and since then, no one knows their whereabouts. Away from Nelson Havi, a group of lawyers, of course, in the entire East African region, they have also come out demanding the release of these two, that is Bob and Nicholas. I was doing some research and I landed on this article, which was actually written by Okumu today. It says lawyers across East Africa have joined human rights groups in demanding the release of two Kenyan activists abducted and detained in neighboring Uganda. In a statement on Friday, the East Africa Law Society expressed deep concern over the disappearance of Bobiwine and Nicholas Oyo and disappointment at the silence from regional authorities. Of course, the silence is too much. The article news say the two activists went missing on October 1st, reportedly abducted by individuals believed to be Ugandan security agents after paying a courteous visit to opposition politician Bobiwine. Let's go through the statement by the East African Law Society. I believe it will be very important that we go through their statement. And here it is. For those who do not know about East African Law Society, here is a brief. East Africa Law Society is the umbrella regional bar association of respective national law societies in East Africa. The Law Society of Kenya, Tanganyika Law Society, Uganda Law Society, Zanzibar Law Society, Rwanda Bar Association, Burundi Bar Association, the South Sudan Bar Association, and the Ethiopia Federal Advocates Association, together with their individual members. It is among the apex bodies of the East African community and has observers status officially conferred upon it by the East African Community and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Established in 1995, East African Law Society has contributed immensely to the development of East African community through strategic litigation and advocacy, building capacity of lawyers and assisting in cross-border trade facilitation. So, and of course, the East African community is the region of the Republic of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Somalia. It has its headquarters in Arusha and aims at achieving a common customs union, common market, common monetary union, and political confederation. There we go. Now, this group, it issued a statement, and it reads, statement on the disappearance of two Kenyan human rights defenders in Uganda. The disappearance of Honorable Humphrey Polepole and the dangerous weaponization of state and judicial power in East Africa. It says, of course, it is dated the 24th October 2025. The East Africa Law Society expresses its profound concern and the unreserved condemnation of the continued holding of two Kenyan human rights defenders, Mr. Nicholas Oyo and Mr. Bobiwine, reportedly abducted in Kaliro District, Uganda on 1st October 2025, and whose whereabouts remain unknown. Equally alarming is the disappearance of Honorable Humphrey Polepole, a respected Tanzanian diplomat and public servant, underscoring a pattern of deepening authoritarianism and cross-border repression across East Africa. These are not isolated incidents. They are the visible symptoms of a broader malaise, the corrosion of constitutionalism, and the quiet normalization of enforced disappearance and the cross-border renditions as a tool of political control. On 22nd October 2025, the High Court of Uganda Civil Division delivered its ruling in Nicholas Oyo and Bobiwine versus Chief of Defense Forces and others. Council had petitioned the court for a writ of habeas corpus and subjudication. Hey, this English is too much of these lawyers. The most ancient and secret petition. No. It says council had petitioned the court for the writ of habeas corpus, the most ancient and secret safeguard of liberty in the common law tradition, to compel the state to produce the missing men. While acknowledging the disappearance following arrest by armed operatives, the court accepted blanket denials issued by security agencies and classifies them as missing persons, and advising instead that a police report be filed, effectively laying the writ of liberty to rest under procedural formalities. This ruling, though procedurally tidy, is morally hollow and jurisprudentially tragic. The writ of habeas corpus is a constitutional prayer to the conscience of the state, not a bureaucratic exercise. When courts accept state denial without credible proof or accountability, they cease to be temples of justice and risk becoming altars of impunity. History will judge whether the judiciary is there to preserve liberty or preside over its erosion. Across East Africa, we witness the slow but deliberate weaponization of judicial institutions, the transformation of courts from barracks of liberty into instruments of statecraft. The court, which ought to be the sanctuary of powerless, is increasingly a stage where procedural legitimacy conceals substantive injustice. Constitutional and legal betrayal. The Constitution of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania enshrine the right to life, liberty, due process, and dignity. Uganda's 1995 Constitution makes habeas corpus inviolable and non-derogable, even in emergencies. By permitting disappearances within its jurisdiction, the state violates not only domestic law but also binding obligations under Article 6 and 7 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Article 79 and 14 of ICCPR, International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, which codifies enforced disappearances as a just cogent norm. The constitutional promise of liberty is meaningless if the machinery of the state can erase citizens and deny all knowledge of their fate. The enforced disappearance of Mr. Oyo, Mr. Njagi, and the Honorable Polepole reveal a growing crisis in the East African community. Transactional repression, where security organs operate across borders to abduct or silence dissent. Such acts violate Article 6D and 7.2 of the East African Treaty, which require adherence to democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. Impunity erodes regional integration. A union of lawlessness cannot produce a community of law. Demands and imperatives. The East African Law Society demands 1. Immediate disclosure and accountability. Uganda must account for the whereabouts of Mr. Oyo and Mr. Njagi, ensuring their safety and access to legal counsel and family. Tanzania must provide a transparent account of Honorable Polepole's disappearance. Kenya must do more to secure its citizens' liberty. Demand number 2. Independent and impartial investigations. Each state must conduct credible, time-bound investigations, publish findings, and prosecute perpetrators. Judicial renewal and integrity. This is the demand. Courts must reclaim their sacred role as guardians of liberty. Courage in the face of power is non-negotiable. Demand number 4. Regional oversight and action. The East African Community Secretariat, African Commission on Human and People's Rights, and the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances are requested to investigate urgently. Number 5. Ratification and demystification of ICPR PPED. All East African Community partner states must ratify and domesticate the convention criminalizing enforced disappearances as a distinct continuing offense. A call to conscience. Law without justice is tyranny. Courts without moral courage become echoes of executive will. The enforced disappearance of East African citizens is not merely a crime against individuals. It is an assault on civilization itself. East African Law Society stands with the families of the disappeared, human rights defenders, and all East Africans who believe law must serve justice, not power. The destiny of this region will not be shaped by might, but by moral courage of its institutions. Of course, this is Ramadan M. Abubakar, the President, East African Law Society, Arusha, Tanzania, 24th October 2025. That is the statement. That is the statement from the East African Law Society. And of course, it's good that they've come out to also add a voice. Remember, there is too much silence when it comes to the side of President Ruto. This side in Uganda, of course, there is nothing that they can do because they are the ones that abducted. What they can do is to produce these two dead or alive. But when it comes to helping, investigating here and there, no one is going to even try. All they are going to do is to deny, just like they have denied on countless abductions of those that are associated with the Bobiwine or National Unity Platform. Actually, just to remind you, I always remind you this, of all the abductions that we've witnessed back here in Uganda, the police and the army have always come out, distanced themselves from such abductions, only for the victims to show up in court, limping, unable to walk, just being, helped to walk and all that kind of thing. Some actually using clutches. So when it comes to Uganda, our brothers in Kenya don't expect much. Just like Nelson Havi advised, the best is to storm the Uganda embassy in Kenya, the best is to storm the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Kenya to demand answers, because the more this takes long, the more, because imagine, today's the 27th of October 2025. These two were abducted on the 1st of October. Imagine, since then up to now, what do you think they are going through? If at all they are still alive, because there is also that possibility. I always remind you of our comrades back here in Uganda, more than 18. We've never seen them again. One of them, John Bosco Chipalama, abducted on the 3rd of June 2019, and up to today, no one has ever seen him again. So, we should amplify the voices asking for the release of these two, so that their case tefiira bufiizi zao, at least family zaabwe ziddamu ne zibalabako. Tudako wana waffe Uganda, guys, let's amplify this voice. Osanga video eno gipushing ennyo, gisharing ennyo, at least abantu abala bategeere kiki ekigenda maaso. Bano abantu babiri baali bazze kuyimirira naffe, fa baagala enkyukakyuka. Si bamenyi b'amateeka, si baziba misango, nedda, just okubeera bubeezi kulaale ya Kyagulanyi. Kubeera bubeezi kulaale ya Kyagulanyi kyekyabawambisa. This is how it all started.
Where Kenyan and across the border to Uganda, where Kenyan activists Bobiwine and Nicholas Oyo were allegedly abducted in Kampala by men believed to be security officials on Wednesday afternoon. The two had reportedly attended a campaign rally of the opposition candidate Bobiwine, who is challenging President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni ahead of the presidential elections in Uganda, adding up to the growing list of concerns of abductions in the region, which human rights and lobby groups say also adds up to the deteriorating state of democracy in the East Africa region. Here is Gatete Njoroge.
These videos recorded during Bobiwine's campaign in Kamuli district, eastern Uganda on Tuesday, clearly captures Free Kenya Movement chairman Bob Njagi on stage alongside Uganda's opposition leader, who is seeking to unseat President Yoweri Museveni. In other clips, Njagi is seen listening keenly to Bobiwine and at times joining his entourage as they traversed rural areas. According to a friend who spoke to us on condition of anonymity, the activists left Kenya on Monday and drove to Uganda in the company of 2 Ugandans. Once in Kampala, the Ugandan companions went home, leaving the 3 Kenyans to link up with Bobiwine's campaign. On Tuesday, they moved across Buyende and Kamuli with NUP leaders as they campaigned ahead of the 2026 presidential elections. But by Wednesday afternoon, the mission took a darker turn. The group had stopped at a petrol station to repair their car when everything went south.
Around 3 p.m., there are some guys who came with a van. Looked to be grey shade in color. People came out with guns, like there were 4 of them. So there was also a lady who was seated in front. They just took Bob and SSG Oyo Ocheng, who is the Secretary General.
The witness who was in their company says he too was picked up but later released.
I told them that my car is not locked. I cannot maybe go to where I don't know. And then they asked me to just get out and then go and lock my car.
The gunmen sped off and within moments, Njagi and Oyo's phones were switched off. Alone and in the dark in a foreign country, their colleague has not reported the matter to authorities, fearing for his safety.
I don't know where Bob is. I don't know which police station he has been taken to. I honestly don't know where he is as we speak right now. I'm just stranded here.
The alleged abduction comes just 4 months after Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan activist Agatha Atuheire were arrested in Tanzania and later dumped near their country's borders. Both would later claim they were sexually assaulted by Tanzanian authorities. For Njagi, this is not the first time. Last year, he was abducted alongside the Longton brothers over alleged links to anti-government protests and disappeared for more than a month.
Maybe that speaks volume why Ruto and his entire team are so silent, so silent about this issue. Yeah, anyway, that is the update as of today. In case of any other update, I'll still come back just like I always do and give you the update. But I encourage comrades in Kenya to mount more pressure. Otherwise, it's taking too long. Yeah, peace and love. Till next time.